Hey everyone, how's it going? This is Ashley. Just wanted to do a quick warning ahead of time. We talk about something that happened to me at New York Comic Con. I use the term assault. Essentially, some shit went down and we're going to bring it up, but it comes way late into the thing and it comes out of nowhere. So I just wanted to prep you for that. That said, we also, while trying to talk about trans issues, because Emmanuel is a wonderful cis ally, but is sometimes has a hard time figuring out exactly how to state the thing that he needs to state as far as trans issues. There's a little bit of what I will call cis stumbling, and to me it is charming and cute and funny because Emmanuel is an amazing person and has been an amazing friend to me. But for those of you who maybe don't know Emmanuel, it might come off a little strange, so I wanted you to know that ahead of time so that you could prepare for listening to this. Without further ado, here is my good friend Emmanuel and I chatting about 2 months ago, I want to say.
Is It Transphobic? We'll be addressing issues of transphobia and transmisogyny.
We may also address issues of racism, classism, ableism, and various other intersectional issues in this podcast.
So this is a trigger warning.
The panelists on Is It Transphobic will also use strong language.
So listener discretion is advised.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for listening to the Is It Transphobic podcast. My name is Ashley Lauren Rogers, and I use she, her, and they, them pronouns. And today I'm being joined by...
My name is Emmanuel Ortiz. I am the founder of Nerd Caliber. I use he, him pronouns. And thank you very much for inviting me to your podcast.
Absolutely. So, Emmanuel, we've been having a lot of conversations with a lot of different people, including trans, non-binary artists, as well as cis allies. What brings you here? Tell me a little bit about Nerd Caliber. Tell me a little bit about what you do. Wow, I asked you everything all at once. What is wrong with me? That is like the worst thing to ask. So tell me everything about you. What makes you you?
Well, Nerd Caliber is a nerd lifestyle magazine. That's what I've always called it. It's pretty much an umbrella term that I created so that pretty much I could just do whatever I really want. That's what the idea of it is that we do feature cosplay. We talk about nerd fashion, but we try to every once in a while to talk about social issues and pop culture, and then we talk about like other things. We review things and we kind of try to look at it at a critical lens at points. From everything from movies, TV, and so forth. I started it about a little over 10 years ago because at the time I didn't see any good representation of what I thought should be out there from media. I just kept seeing the same things over and over again. So I wanted to do interviews in a way that I've never seen really done. I always wanted to ask really introspective, deep questions. And I feel like there wasn't too much of that. Also, I didn't see too many people of color really out there at the time especially when cosplay was becoming big. I was showing pretty much a lot of mostly like white people.
Yeah.
Mostly, yeah. And I was like, okay, there's more out there. And same thing with artists, same thing with comic book writers. In the beginning, I try to look for POC comic book writers and artists and try to interview them. Same thing with photographers. In the beginning that worked with us, I try to find people of color that did photography at conventions, and I wanted to work with them and so forth. Another reason why I did Nerd Caliber was because I had a really bad experience. At the time, I was doing freelance work and volunteering work at the time there were different comic book museums trying to become the comic book museum, and then I think MoCA eventually became that at the end. But before that happened, I remember there was different ones, and I volunteered at different ones because at the time I had this dream of becoming a comic book writer, and I wanted to get to know people. And I remember once. And this was at a time where I was getting a lot of like graphic design work to do, and that was great. I got to meet like Mike Mignola, the creator of Hellboy. That was a great experience, embarrassing experience, but a great experience. Cause I
Embarrassing how? If you don't mind me asking.
Well, I told someone I really like this writer's work, and it was a Hellboy. It was when Hellboy, the first movie, came out, right before it came out, and I was like, oh, I'm so excited about it. And I was at a party. you call those parties, like
Oh, okay, like a premiere party.
and I was there and I was doing my networking thing, and then I was telling someone, I was actually telling who eventually became president of Mocha later on, but he was a real nice guy, and I told him, oh, I would love to meet Mike Mignola. I was such a big fan of his. And then I disappear for 5 minutes, whatever, I mingle, and then he comes back to me and says, it taps my shoulder like, hey, here's Mike Mignola. And I'm like, I'm not prepared. Try not to freak out. that was
You should have sent me a text saying, I'm coming back with Mike Mignola.
It was weird. I was like, hey, I like your work. Oh, thank you. I love that thing we did with Marvel Comics too, with Doctor Strange and Doctor Doom. And like, oh yeah, I didn't really write that. I just drew that. Okay.
No.
Well, thank you. I like your movies. Yeah. Oh, that was. Oh. But I got a nice T-shirt afterwards, so that was cool.
Aw. Like, it's very much that the Chris Farley like interview type of situation. Like, hey, you remember when you did that?
Yeah.
That was cool. Yeah. No, I've definitely been there.
Yeah.
For those that don't know, also just to state it out there, I've worked with Nerd Caliber for quite some time. I've been an on-air talent with Nerd Caliber. I'm still an on-air talent with Nerd Caliber. Actually, I've finally gotten back into the Nerd Caliber podcasting stuff. But yeah, like I've definitely been there too. I've tried to. For me though, especially for me, I've tried to make jokes and they have not landed. And that is the worst, especially when you front load an interview with a joke and it doesn't land, because that interview is dead.
Yeah, I give props to comedians that go out there and do stand up, and then it falls flat. How they pick themselves afterwards. That's always to me the most interesting thing, because that's something I want to learn whenever. Because I'm always in those situations where it's always awkward. I'm like, okay, I need to bounce out of this. How do I do it? I'm trying to find, like, my memory is going through like a backlog of info. Like, okay, this scenario? Let me say this scenario to get out of it, and
I will say generally, and this is like obviously like this is not always the case, but generally an audience wants you to succeed because they want to be entertained by you. So like an interview subject will also want you to succeed. So if you like flat out fail on in your intro or your first thing, they still want you to succeed. So even if you're just like, all right, nope, well, let's figure out how we're going to do this, and the answer is by just pushing forward, because they do like that. And again, there are exceptions to that. Yeah. But generally the audience wants you to succeed.
Yeah. So going back to the comic book museum stuff, there was another party I went to. Now this changed everything. It was a different party, different people, and I was mingling, and the one who was in charge of that, who later on became an editor at Marvel Comics years later. But at the time, he was like me, kind of networking, but he was in charge of this group. And he tapped me on the shoulder and said, hey, can I talk to you outside for a second? I was like, yeah, sure. And I figured he's going to talk to me about a project or something like that. He said, hey, are you white? And I'm like,
I'm sorry, I don't mean to laugh. I was surprised by that. Go on.
And I was surprised. Yeah, I was like what? And I was like, yeah, sorry. I was just curious. You look white. Are you white or maybe Jewish? And I was like, no, I'm Puerto Rican. I grew up in the Bronx and everything. I would say, I don't know. It was like, and then after I said that, he nodded. He said, oh, okay, I was just curious. And when I went back to the party, the vibe for me kind of changed, and I noticed afterwards that instead of like getting like people asking me like, hey, you want to do graphic design stuff for us and writing stuff like that, some freelance stuff, to like, hey, after the party, we need some people to help out cleaning dishes and wiping the floors afterwards. Would you like helping us out and volunteering for that? And I was like, no. So I stopped volunteering with them. And it was stuff like that. Like I realized like, okay, that's when my Marvel Comics stream died. I was like, forget it. I don't want to be involved if it's like that, So that's sort of the stuff that helped me frame Nerd Caliber.
Just to be clear, and this organization was not necessarily associated with Marvel Comics, but it's just the industry in general that sort of killed it, or was it? Because I wasn't really sure.
It was just I it sort of like opened my eyes a little bit. Like I've noticed that after a certain point that freelancing and me trying networking, it was just unless I knew the right people, I was like, all right, forget it. It was just I just felt that. I just wasn't white enough to be there, and it's sort of like open eyes. Like once, have you noticed something like you ever hear a new word, and then once you hear that new word, you hear it everywhere suddenly?
Yes.
That's sort of like racism, I guess, for me. Like sometimes I have a hard time picking it up when I'm at a place. But once it happens once, I think of everything I've been through, all my work and what I'm trying to accomplish. Like, oh wow, this is going to be more difficult than I thought. I didn't care that much to fight for it, So I was like, it's just wasn't for me. And also at that point too, I realized that if you want to be a writer and an artist, it's good to just work on your own. You don't want to work for Marvel or DC because they kind of screw you over. Honestly, they steal all your rights away. If you make new original characters, you just don't get much. I mean, I look at all the comic writers and artists of old and how they're treated afterwards. Like Bill. I might be wrong about this. Bill Mantlo, who helped create like Rocky Raccoon, ended up, I think, dying at an old age home somewhere. Not getting any cent from Guardians of the Galaxy. So I'm like, I don't want that to happen to me. That's just an example. But there was other. I remember, like Jack Kirby would probably be a bigger one. How he got screwed over big time. But when I heard stories like that and seeing how it's being treated, and so I saw the writing on the wall, I was like, I'm just gonna move ahead. And at the time, I tried creating my own media. I tried different things before Nerd Caliber, but I worked with other people that I just felt like once the vision wasn't right, I felt like one wanted to get into wanted to do like adult entertainment stuff, which I was not into, or other various forms of art that I was like, I'm not into like synth pop that much. I like it, but not into like to get into the scene and do some sort of media around it. So I that, and also my divorce, all these other factors, I was like, I'm just gonna pull myself away from everything. And then when I got remarried and moved to Massachusetts around 2010, and I went for my Perks Pack seats, it's like, you know what? I'm gonna make a company again. I'm gonna make it on my own. I'm gonna make it in this vision, and that's how Nerd Caliber came to be.
Yeah, very awesome. And so, like, what is the timeline? How long ago was that? How long has Nerd Caliber been in existence?
Over 10 years now. It started around May 2010 officially. Once we went to Granite State Comic Con, I consider it our first anniversary, our first time doing something officially.
Very awesome. What have been some of the biggest changes that you've seen within Nerd Caliber from start to now? Like, what are some of the things?
Definitely the video side of it. Like, that's pretty much our biggest success with Nerd Caliber. The fact that we have over 550,000 subscribers, that's great. That validates so many of my, like, whether or not my ideas are good or not. The fact that people are watching them, like, okay, cool, and it's great. That seems to be the biggest change. Like, I figured in the beginning Nerd Caliber was going to be more like website articles and maybe some photos, and I didn't expect that to transform more into like a video media company, more so than that. I'm sure we do photography still and we write articles, but that is not our bread and butter at all. It's nice, and honestly, to the point where it wasn't for my partner Rodney and some other individuals that are really excited about the photography and everything, I'll probably just not use it so much and focus more on video. So that's the biggest change, that the fact that the video side is doing so well.
Yeah. What are some things that you're still working towards with Nerd Caliber? What are some things that maybe you're still trying to figure out? What are some things that you're looking to test out with Nerd Caliber?
Well, definitely right now with COVID, we're focusing more, doing things more online more than ever. That could be a whole big discussion but from a personal side of things, I'm looking trying to make it more inclusive. What I would like to see happen more with Nerd Caliber is have a much more social presence. And when I mean by social presence, I want us to like really speak up. I feel like we're too quiet, and that's my fault because I've been so busy with my own personal life. Nerd Caliber, I try not to make it my main thing. I know some people make work their number one thing, but I try to make like family and what's going on in my community the number one thing. I don't want to get lost in my work, but I think I'm so far away that I forgot that it had a voice, and that it needs a voice. It needs a voice, and it needs to speak out more on some things. And I feel like with all the craziness going out there with like the reemergence of Nazism back in America, for example, like I feel like Nerd Caliber needs to speak more out about it. Things like that. Like I want it to be much more like, just more like, hey, we gotta stand up and fight against these injustices that are just going on. And I want us to do more of that. I'm just trying to figure out a plan to do so.
Mm-hmm. No, I definitely hear that, and especially with a lot of nerd subcultures, those tend to be a lot of for lack of better terms, hunting grounds for a lot of these Nazis to find ways into people, find ways to get, like, I know there was an article recently, not through Nerd Caliber, but about bronies and how, since My Little Pony Friendship is Magic has finished, a lot of the like underlying people who are just sort of like staying there, being Nazis and perpetuating a lot of that shit, have really come into prominence in the brony community. And so a lot of folks that are still within that community are trying very hard to fight that and to speak up. But it is one of those things that a lot of these folks, a lot of bad actors do come in and they find this thing that people love and they sort of sidle up to them in order to get their trust, and then fill them with these shitty things. And so that's yeah. It wasn't really a question. It's just sort of an observation that I've kind of seen as well. So I can understand why you'd want to like have a plan and have a
I'm really disappointed with nerddom sometimes when it comes to like I think we're so in love with the fun stuff of pop culture, they're not realizing the messages that were there before, or how they were there because of, like, Captain America, for example. Captain America was made by 2 Jewish creators because they want to speak out against what's going on in Nazi Germany. And people tend to forget that at one point they were getting death threats because they had that famous cover of Captain America punching Hitler. Why were they upset about it? Because at some point in our history, and it's in a way it still is, but at that point in history, people didn't see Germany doing what they were doing as such a bad thing. You know, I mean, we forget that this country has anti-Semitic issues, and still does, and that's what Captain America was a symbol of in the beginning. It was what the creators had in mind for it. And I think when they look at Captain America now, they just look like all the fun stuff, and he has a cool shield and he can fight. But like, no, but he also beats up fascists. Wonder Woman, the same thing. All these, I mean, Superman was a socialist. He beat up a lot of rich people in the beginning.
His main antagonist is a rich dude.
Yeah, exactly.
Superman says, "Eat the rich."
So it drives me nuts. Where, like, I know there was a situation where a cosplayer, they were cosplaying as Superman and Supergirl, and like they were like in that Charleston Nazi protesting crap that was happening a few months ago. And then it's just like, it just boggles my mind, like, okay, you cosplay these characters and do you not get the point behind it? So it's not just, they're not nationalistic. I keep seeing this over and over again. I'm like, are you not understanding where all this that's why I really can't stand this is too political. This has become too political. It's always been political. It has always been political. X-Men has always, since Chris Claremont, right, the X-Men, had been underlying, talk about these issues of racism, in his comic books, in his comic books. I mean, let's see, I'm trying to pick a random one. Spider-Man, drug issues, and I mean, it's always been like that. And I just, when people sort of like, oh, this comic has now been very political, it's always been political. I mean,
correct me if you disagree, but I think a lot of this idea of, it's too political is usually just because it's about a thing that the people who are criticizing it don't agree with. When, exactly like you say, the politics have always been there. Politics have always been a part of comics, and that's sort of, even when especially when they tried to, like the Comics Code Authority and a lot of these other organizations tried to stop any kind of political anything, it literally just created how do we still write about these issues? How do we get people to understand them, even when we're being told it is illegal to talk about these? And
so it's like Mobius, I believe, from Spider-Man was trying to. It was their way of trying to talk about drug issues, getting around that Comics Code Authority, So it's always been there, and I agree with you. I think as people realize, like, oh, this is talking about us. I hate this now, And I'm like, I'm sorry, Dave. It's always been talking about these issues, And if you take it personal, then maybe you should really do some introspection, some serious introspection. But I'm sorry, I'm not sure if I went off topic.
No, you're good. This is it. Pretty much, if you go off topic, that's kind of on brand for Is It Transphobic? So. Well, even then, like, we, as a transgender, a non-binary trans woman, there was recently 2 additions to the Marvel Universe that I couldn't stand. I think it was like Safe Space and Snowflake. And it's just like, yo, you did not even talk to a trans or non-binary person about these characters. Like, you didn't even Google. You just said like, oh, yeah, we're going to subvert it as this like cis, I believe, as I remember researching hetero dude.
Yeah.
It's just like,
When I see stuff like that, I think that the writer had good intentions, but they just probably read something and it's like, that sounds like a great idea. And then it's someone that's never really been in the front lines of facing these issues head on. It's just someone far away, like, that's a great idea. I think I'd make a character around that. That's what it felt like to me.
Yeah, and I think especially when people talk about, like, I think when people who listen to these ideologies, this idea of like, oh, it's all too political, it's just like they see stuff like Snowflake and fucking Safe Space, and they're like, oh, this is what I'm talking about. It's just like, it's hard to argue against this right now, but trust me, like, this is just an isolated piece of garbage, and it's hilarious. And we in the community are laughing about it too. Now that we know that it's not, we know that it's a joke. It's not a joke, but it's just like, it's a joke to us. But yeah. So talk to me a little bit about like other work that you do in media, because I know that you work in various forms of media as well. So I'd love to hear more about that and sort of how people can get into like let's start there. Tell me a little bit about your work in other media. Well,
first I want to let people know that if you want to get into media, don't be afraid about money, because we're living in a great age where you can create stuff very minimally. And maybe the quality of it may not be great at first, but don't let it stop you. Because when in the beginning, when Nerd Caliber only had this like cheap video camera, barely a good mic. But in the beginning, like again, I just didn't have the greatest equipment, but I didn't let that stop me. I just try to create something and then do the best I can. Photoshop Elements is like $50. You could just get that, and then you could use that as basic video editing. You could get a video camera for like $200 nowadays. But even without doing that, you just use your phone. Phones are great. I don't know if you've seen the Really Dicey intro that I made for Really Dicey, the gaming channel, but I did that with my iPhone. I just looked down on it. It had some dice and then some props, and then I just did it that way, and it worked. And and most laptops have webcams on them. Zoom, it's sort of free right now too. You could do up to 40 minutes. You can record yourself or you and someone else a conversation. So don't let that stop you. There's ways around things, and even better. Sorry, I should never forget this. Look at where you are in your community. You may have a local access TV station that could give you, just because you're a member of the community, free equipment. Even if you're not a member, they may charge you like $25. At Fitchburg, they have a local access community station, and I put $25 or $50 at the time for a whole year. You could take out their equipment and then film what you need to film. In return, they probably want a copy of it so they can film it in their local access TV station. But you could just create your own media that way. So I just want to let people know that don't let that stop you. And of course, if you want to share my email address with anyone, if they have questions, I'd be happy to answer as well. But I've done podcasting. I've done obviously video work, writing, photography. I'm trying to think. I mean, I've done all sorts of graphic design work. I just can't. I mean, right now I work for a local access TV station currently, and then I have 2 YouTube channels, Nerd Caliber, and then it's Really Dicey, my new gaming channel. And let's see, what else? I feel like there's more, and I'm sure I will remember all of them as soon as this interview is over.
That's how it always is. Honestly, whenever people are like, oh, can you tell me good examples of trans characters in media? It's just like, I wish you would ask me 2 hours from now, because now I'll be thinking about all of them. But like, yeah, no, I understand that completely. Like, what are some considerations people should have? Because I know you mentioned, like, don't worry about the tech. You can build up the tech. You can get the tech from local access TV stations, particularly if you're in an area that has those, but even then using your phone. But like, like, what are some other considerations people should have when they're starting up either a channel, when they're starting up a website? Like, what are some major things?
Well, think about what you're doing first. I had this one person that came up to me and said, "Hey, listen, I have 3 channels on my YouTube. I have 3 videos on my YouTube channel. Can you take a look and let me know why it's not doing so well?" All right, so I took a look at it. His videos are about collecting trash, and I'm like, "Okay, it's well done. It's edited." But I asked him, "Hey, do you have an audience?" And like, "I'm not sure." Okay, that's one problem. You shouldn't find out first if you have an audience. I don't know if there is an audience of anyone looking to trash. But if the way to find out is like, all right, Facebook, Instagram, there's groups out there, and Reddit, there's groups out there almost for Reddit, especially has that group for everything. Join a group and then ask them, and get ready to be critiqued heavily because people are mean on the internet. I don't know if you know this.
This is the exception when I was talking earlier about the audience wants you to succeed. The internet does not, but the audience.
But find out first if you have an audience, and then talk to this group, talk to your groups, and say, "Hey, I'm doing this. I want to share this. What do you think?" And then just hear what they suggest. Sometimes I don't take all the suggestions because in the end, it has to be what I want to do. I don't want to be like someone else. I want to be like myself in my videos. So yeah, find out. And then networking is a really big thing too. Once you have your part of these groups, let them know that you're doing this. Hopefully they'll follow you, and most importantly, it has to be a labor of love. So with Nerd Caliber, I've seen so many new cosplay groups, like cosplay media groups, pop up, and it's always weird because a lot of them come up to me as if they're trying to like compete against me. And to me, that's kind of like mind-boggling. Like, why are we? There's no reason to compete. I mean, YouTube is free, so like, if people like your stuff, they'll watch it, and they'll like my stuff, they'll watch it. And sometimes, check this out, they could probably watch both of them at the same time. It's not like the old days with the 50s and 60s where like people compete against the 3 channels that they had at the time. So like to me, when you compete, it's like, all right, good, do what you got to do what I got to do. But the way I do things, I do it my way. So it is maybe what I do. Like I say, I do mostly cosplay. Yeah, there might be other channels like it, but there'll be no channel like my channel because it's me. I'm putting my creativity into this, and my creativity, it's very different from most people. At least that's what I've seen, good or bad. So that's important too. It's really, you have to be passionate. You have to stick with it because in the beginning, our Caliber, I remember when we did AutoCon 2012, 13. Do you remember that? Where we
was that the one where we did like the marathon of like 8-hour recording?
I think
for
so.
like 3 days in a row. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I remember those days.
I remember, yes, because I was interviewing a Princess Celestia, and you started falling asleep with the camera in your hand.
Oh wow!
And it was just like, I think it's time to stop, Emmanuel. Like, we're just doing, and me and this person who's cosplaying as Celestia are just riffing back and forth, and then all of a sudden I kind of see like Emmanuel just sort of like move a little. It's like, I think we should stop. Like,
oh yeah, I don't do that anymore, fortunately.
Yeah.
So I remember the YouTube channel having like 150 subscribers when that video went up, but I believed in it, and I kept pushing it, I kept networking it, I kept sharing it, and it just started to grow. My subscribers started growing big time because of it, because I knew my work was good, and I believed in it, and so I started sharing it. And I knew that if I shared it enough, people may have their jokes and everything like that and have their mean criticism. But there'll be people out there that are very quiet. They look at it like, oh, this is not so bad. I'll follow this, So don't give up on that.
Yeah. I know, but random story that I was just thinking about, like I was interviewing, I forget if you were the camera person or if it was someone else, but I was interviewing Jessica Negri at one point, and we put up the video. And there were so many comments, like some of them were just like garbage comments, and I was just like, all right, whatever. But some of them were just like weirdly hilarious. Like, oh, the interviewer isn't staring at her chest. God mode unlocked. It was just like, wow, okay. Like the weird things that'll pop up. Like, what are some? Let's talk about positives. Like, what are some like things that have surprised you as far as community interaction, as far as like people commenting on things?
Well, one thing with YouTube, And I'm so glad they had this options where you can control the type of words that appear in your comments. That's the first thing I did already because I as you know, as I mentioned before, like I try to look for like not like I try to stay away from like white cis interviewers, like things that you've seen in other media. I didn't want the same thing that other media has. I wanted something different. So, but I knew because of that, people were going to be like, oh, why do you have this person? Why do you have that person? So I was like, all right, you could be critical, but I don't want you to use like derogatory words. So I make sure like N word, R word, things like that. That was like, no way I want to see that in my comment section at all. That was the point, and that sadly that blocked a lot of people from commenting, and I was okay with that. And I didn't care if I lost subscribers, or anything like that. I think I've told you this before that I don't want to sell my soul for this. I don't want to sell myself for success and lose myself in the process of this. Luckily, I have good people in my life that in case I've ever been tempted with that, they always pull me back and remind me. But
and correct me if I'm wrong, or if you disagree with this as well, but like I feel like especially for me, if I come to a comment section and it's full of that kind of stuff, I immediately don't want to engage, and I very well may stay away from that content because I'm seeing that there's no one moderating it, there's no one keeping it, so it's just like, I'm good.
Yeah.
I don't need this in my life.
Yeah.
So even though you might lose some numbers there, like for me, like I
for that video particularly, but I mean, certain Jessica Nigre fans tend to be very horrible people anyway. Sorry,
Jessica is lovely. Jessica is
great.
lovely.
She's great. She's great.
Yeah.
But like just like when fandom's too big, they always had this section of ugly, disgusting fans. And I knew I was surprised that I saw some of that come in. But I am happy to say that for the most part, when it came to other videos, that for the most part they were pretty accepting of non-binary or trans or people of color for the most part, like other cosplayers, because other cosplayers tend to comment on my videos the most. And I was glad, especially like the videos that we did with you, that we did together, that I was thinking, I didn't think, so when we worked together, I never thought of like I'm working with a trans individual. I didn't think of it that way. I was thinking like, oh, I'm working with Ashley, and Ashley's funny, and this is going to be great. It wasn't until much afterwards that there was two people. I get like two different like either like, you're working with a trans individual. Wow, you're so brave. And I'm like, oh, I'm like,
sorry, I don't mean to laugh, but I'm gonna laugh at that.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know, like I didn't think that or
so brave.
Yeah. or like they're being cautious, like, oh, are you sure that's a good idea? And I'm like, like huh? Like,
wow.
Yeah, no, but I never, I don't know. It's like I don't see what they see. I never it did sometimes make me worry, like, oh, hope I'm not putting Ashley in a dangerous spot. Like, would this put a spotlight on her, and then will people gonna look for her and say bad things? I was really worried about that at one point. I was like, oh, because people could be real a-holes on the internet. No, surprise. But
yeah, no, and I will say that because you've always been very communicative with me about these issues. You've always talked to me like, hey, I'm having this worry. Is this a worry that you have?
Yeah.
And I think that's really the big thing is communication, and also for me, like I wouldn't, if I didn't know what the potential problems would be, I wouldn't have done it. Like I would have just been like, oh no, I'm just gonna go to Otakon and have a good time. Oh no, I'm just gonna do this. It's like, no, me having a good time is me with a microphone and a camera asking people about their character and making a bunch of really stupid puns and jokes and having fun with the cosplayers. Like, yeah,
I really like the videos I work with you on. They're the few ones that sometimes I go back and look at the old videos and I'm like, oh, this is cringy. Why did I don't know if I should, like, I feel like, oh man, I didn't do this one very well. I didn't edit this very well. But the ones I work with you on, I still laugh and like, oh, this is great. I'm so happy I did this. You're so great at on the spot puns. It's just amazing. I'm like, I'm jealous of it. Just of that ability.
Yes, keep complimenting me. Continue.
But I'm really glad. I'll say that my friendship with you means a lot to me because not because hang out with you is awesome, and but you also like I didn't realize how really ignorant I was when it comes to trans issues in general. And you're very open about talking about it on your Facebook page and everything like that. And I'll sometimes you bring up a question or you bring up an experience that you went through, and I'll read about it and I read how other people interact, the comments afterwards. And for the most part, you have a very good support group, I guess, of friends on your Facebook page. So I learned a lot, and it's just like I remember, and this is like years ago. I remember you identify yourself as a trans woman, but also as a lesbian, and to me that blew my mind. It was like wait, because for some reason I thought at the time when you're trans you didn't need an extra label. Like I didn't know. Like I figured like they can choose to be with men or women or non-binary, whatever they choose. Like I didn't realize that the notion, like, I don't want to know notion of trans, is not the right way of saying it, but the idea of the trans community is such a big community, and it was just, there's like labels were needed, extra labels were needed to explain, and that, to me at times, I was like, wow, I didn't realize that, like this, it just, I know it sounds silly, but this is years ago. This is like 8 years ago or so, and just stuff like that. I've learned a lot, and it helps me become a better person, and also how to, whenever I meet other trans individuals, that I become more, I become more careful what to say, and understand more of what they're going through, and although I am happy in this day and age that I didn't think trans issues would be ever be talked about. I remember, I mean, what was it? 2008, people were still arguing about whether or not gays should be married. And I guess in a way we still are, So when I saw people still debating, I was like, oh, we're never going to talk about trans issues, and now we are, and that's great. I'm glad that people are speaking out against J.K. Rowling. I bet you J.K. Rowling, when it came out with her views in 2008, not many people would have stood up to her, or knew how to organize to talk about it. But now we can, and that's phenomenal.
Yeah, and I think even back then, we, exactly like you say, like we only got, like, gay marriage only got legalized in 2016, and that is so, like, the span, it hasn't even been 5 years. Like, wow. And I'm so happy that people have been able to push forward, and people have been able to talk about, exactly like you say, like, finally talk about trans issues publicly and support. And yeah, like, Emmanuel, you're so brave.
Who knew? Like, I don't know. It's weird how some people come up to me. I think because I'm very quiet, so people come up to me and share things with me. I'm like, why are you sharing this with me? Like, I'm so sort of like weird, like priest, and I'm like, share me your sins and I'll forgive you, I guess. I don't know. It's just I don't know. I get weird comments like that all the time, But
I think there's something in when people think you agree with them. They share a lot more. And because I experienced this before I realized that I was trans, and because, like, I grew up a middle class white person who was assigned male at birth. And so people would, like, say things to me, and I'd kind of like, what? And, in better moments I would fight them on it. But, like, sometimes you're just like, what is happening? Why are you sharing this with me? And I think that's just, it's a fascinating thing to go through, but I've definitely been there, and I feel that, like, I think I've had very similar moments talking to people about being goth, because, like, when I was working in Starbucks in Harlem, I was working with a bunch of folks, and, like, one of them was just like, oh, goths, Ashley, they all worship Satan and they do this, and it's just like, look, I don't dress all goth all the time, but, like, I grew up, like, in middle school, high school, I was goth. I still do the goth thing, and it's just like, me, I don't worship Satan. I think he's an okay dude right now, but, like...
Oh, people. I love people.
But yeah, yeah. Sometimes you're able to laugh about it, but yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
But with Nerd Caliber, I'm glad for that. I mean, I've heard people say that they're happy that they see representation on there and they're glad for that. But personally, for myself, I'm glad that I'm learning. Every time we interview someone and meet someone, I'm always learning. I remember back right before Nerd Caliber, this is when I was working for other companies. We interviewed a cosplayer. I believe he was. I'm not sure if he identified as a man, but he was from what I understood, he was a gay man dressed as a woman, as a anime character, and they talked about how like this is the way to express their sexuality. Like this is like they can't do this in what they do in real life, but this is the only chance I could be myself and be creative and be myself. And to me, that at the time that blew my mind. I was like oh, costuming is a way of expression, like as a way of expressing your identity, or exploring your identity or gender. I thought to me that was fascinating and incredible. And from that interaction, my understanding just grew a little bit. And I feel like every time I interview someone and get to know someone, I grow a little bit too, no matter what their background is.
And I think that's what's really important, is that whether you're creating media, whether you're interviewing people, whatever that is that you are constantly questioning and that you're constantly evolving, changing. And at least for me, like whenever I'm working with a group, there's a reason that I've worked with Nerd Caliber for a very long time. And part of it is because views are constantly changing and evolving, and people are listening, and that's really important.
You remember Jabri? He said the same thing to me. Like he said he was looking to experiment. I didn't realize that. I think I can't remember, but I remember he said he was learning to be more social and learn how to be professional and talking to people. And he was asking, should I join this group and that group? And everyone that he knew said, no, do Nerd Caliber, because they'll treat you well there and they'll respect you there. And he told me that. I was like, oh, that's good. I'm glad that Nerd Caliber has that reputation that we treat people well. I mean, when a new photographer or any new talent comes up to me and says, hey, I want to do something with you, I have to step back and I have to look at their social media content. I want to see what they've done, because I don't want any racists. I don't want any sexist, transphobes. I don't want none of that in our group. If you have a problem whatsoever, you could get the hell out and stay away from us, because you have to be accepting. You have to love everybody, but you have to accept everybody. You have to work with everybody. I don't want to hear oh, I don't want to work with this person because they're black. Oh, I can't photograph this person because they're too dark skinned. Get out of here. First of all, you're a crappy photographer. Go away. You just can't. I don't want to deal with any of that. So I do try to make our group diverse as much as possible. I try to include anyone that's interested. I try to include them in as much as I can.
What are some of the best experiences you've had doing Nerd Caliber interviews at a con?
Things that stand out to me is always the weird moments. When I say weird moments, I mean like it's just like these weird magical, like the Homestuck. The Homestuck moment to me is my.
Please tell people about the Homestuck moment, because that is by far one of my favorite moments as well.
So we went to Otakon, and this is what 2012. This was a long time ago, and then we were talking to how about Crunchies. And they're fantastic. They're fantastic cosplayers, and they were cool with role playing and making jokes. So we did a joke about what was it, all Homestuck people were Homestuck cosplays were.
I hear all homes. I forget exactly what I said, but I think it was I hear all Homestuck cosplayers are jerks.
Yeah, something like that.
They cosplay so that they could be jerks.
Yeah, but we were just playing around. But I think the way I edited it made it look like we were being real a little bit, So some of the Homestuck cosplay comments are like, "Hey, that's not cool," And I was like, "Oh, okay, we got to fix this." I don't want to think that they're not. They are cool. So we went to New York Comic Con that year, and we did a skit where you confess your sins to the crowd, and they handed you.
So specifically, this was a Homestuck photo shoot that I think you orchestrated it, because I wouldn't have reached out to anybody, but where you talked to the people who were creating the Homestuck photo shoot, and this was a big one. This was 100 and some odd people photo shoot.
Yeah, this was when Homestuck was big at the time.
Yeah,
it was huge.
And I got up in front of them, like they were like, okay, we're going to do the photo shoot in a sec, but first we have an announcement. But before we even did that, I was standing off to the side a little bit, and someone from the photo shoot was like, hey, I'm sorry, this is specifically for Homestuck photo shoot. And then we were like, wait. No, there's the thing. We worked it out with this person. Please talk to this person. Because we were just like, no, I really want to do this. I really want to do this. So they brought me up in front of the photo shoot, and it was just like, hi everyone, my name is Ashley, and I work with Nerd Caliber, and I just want to say I said at Otakon Homestuck, and then I kept adding more insults because that's me. It's like, I said Homestuck people, they don't shower, they're honestly just like they're mean, and they're like, and I was just like, and I just want to say that is not true, and I am sorry. And so then in true Homestuck fashion, they cheered and then tried to put me in a bucket, which the bucket is apparently some horrible thing in Homestuck that I still don't know, and I refuse to Google because I don't want to know what's in that bucket.
And the way I edited it made it look like they killed you. They go on the floor dead. And then I think I edited someone saying like, "Don't make fun of Homestuck," like dun, dun, dun. And that's how it ended. And I love that because I that to me that's one of one of my favorite moments of editing. That was fun. Let's see what else. I'm trying to think some of my favorite moments. It's all in blur. Let's see. Is there anything else that stood out to me as one of my favorite moments? Well, so one time I forgot what happened. We had to interview Dylan Thompson. I think we double booked ourselves. And I think you went with Adam to film an interview, and I decided, okay, I'll interview Dylan Thomas. I think that's the actor's name, the one from Teen Wolf originally, and it did the Maze movies, and recently did Love and Monsters, I think.
Oh, okay.
So I remember I interviewed him. My wife, at the time, she really loves Teen Wolf. Like the first 2 seasons there were, and I watched it. They were fantastic. And for some reason, when I was talking to him, I got really nervous because I wanted this to be really good for her. I wanted, so, and I got nervous. He noticed that. So when I interviewed, I flubbed my first lines, and I wanted to redo them again. And he grabbed me by the hand and said, "Hey, it's okay. It's okay. I understand." And he winked at me. And then it occurred to me, oh, wait a second. He thinks I'm nervous because
because you are attracted to him?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so cute. Oh my God.
But you know what? I did that correct. Because maybe I was starstruck a little bit too, And I continued with the interview, and afterwards he gave me a hug and said, "Hey, it's okay, I understand." And then he winked at me again, and then went off to the next one, and that was good. I was happy about that.
That is amazing. Oh. And I think also for listeners who maybe don't do a lot of media interviews, sometimes especially if you're just starting out, and we weren't just starting out at that point, Nerd Caliber had been around for a while, because I remember when that was going on. But you sometimes do have to interview, you'll get interviews in order to get more interviews later.
Yeah.
So you got to do some interviews with folks that you don't necessarily know. I know I remember, I think it was Lost Girl. There was you were kind of asking all the contributors, hey, has anyone seen Lost Girl yet? Has anyone? And all of us were like, no. And I was like, I think I Googled it once. So I got put in well, Ashley, you know the most about Lost Girl. So the only one who I know saw through my bullshit was the male. There was a male actor on Lost Girl, and he just I was asking everyone talk to me about acting. This is what we can get into. Okay, so you actually speak Russian? Was that part of your character, or did they throw that in? It's oh no, we added that because I actually speak Russian. So I was oh great, okay, great. And then we get to him, and you could tell the eyes. He's just huh. It's my next question was probably going to be, so do you like toast? Because I was just you see through this. I have no idea who the hell you are. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I have watched Lost Girl since. It's pretty good up until a point. Maybe we'll cover that on Is It Transphobic? Anyone who knows the show knows what I'm talking about. Season 3. But But sometimes like that's a thing that you've got to do is like you get certain interviews, you do your research, and you try and figure it out as best as you can because they are looking to you to advertise their show, but also you are looking to become bigger as so that you have a proven track record of doing the job well. And also, I'm just talking over you. Feel free to tell me.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I remember that. I think I was there for that, and I remember like, oh, I don't know any of these people, which is funny because I got to know who they are afterwards. Like there was one actress, I don't remember her name, but she was in a show called, it's a sci-fi show. I'm gonna her because after Lost Girl, she did this. It was another Canadian TV series about criminals in space that lost their memory, and then they were trying to like, in a way, it was their second chance of doing the right thing because they don't remember who they were, and it was a very interesting idea of like, does memory make who we are? But she was the AI, and I'm going off topic. Yeah, but yeah, I remember that, and that was fun. The celebrity interviews were pretty fun to do. I still feel terrible about the Lost Wrestling stuff that we did.
Yeah,
the Rey Mysterio one, Lucha Underground one.
I still have my picture with Rey Mysterio, and I still have my memories. And anyone who listens to the podcast knows that I'm a huge mark for pro wrestling. I am also a little bit sad and angry about the Lost interview I did with Rey Mysterio, where he's literally like up to my belt buckle. That dude is small. Like I am amazed. And yeah, he was one of the sweetest interviews. I'm sorry, but he was one of the sweetest interviews I've ever had. Like he comes up to me and he's like, "Oh, you're very tall." And I was just like, "I mean, you've beaten taller people than me." And he was like, "Yeah, I've beaten them in the ring. I've not been interviewed by them." I was like, "Fair."
I should really go back and see if I could fix it now. Not with the stuff that I know now. See if I can go back and fix it because there was an issue of syncing. That was the big problem. I should go back and see if I can fix that now. But anyway, we're going way off.
If you do, maybe we can do this as an Is It Transphobic Nerd Caliber collab and just release it as like Lost Footage.
I'm trying to think. I remember, sometimes I have these really random memories of us. And there's one I remember where you were dressed up in one of the My Little Pony characters for one of our interviews. And we interviewed someone, and then afterwards, you both were talking about makeup. You were talking about the cosplayer you interviewed asked you afterwards about how do you do. I think the other cosplayer had trouble hiding the facial hair, and they were asking you about how to cover up makeup tips. And I thought that was fascinating. I was listening in on that. I tried not to, but I thought that was fascinating about that discussion. It just helps me understand what people, what cosplayers and especially cosplayers who are not have like non-cis genders, like, what they go through, like what they're trying to, like, to me, like, wow, the fact that this cosplayer is trying to find makeup for that, it's just something that never occurred to me before, like just to hide facial hair stuff,
And I think a lot of these things are very much like how to hide facial hair. There are a lot of AFAB folks who are assigned female at birth who still have like facial hair issues. There are a lot of folks who like cosplayers who are trying to cosplay, whether it's a female character or a character that just does not have facial hair. Like there are a lot of people that like, yeah, these are things that like a lot of people can benefit from. And so, because it's so funny because I don't remember that, but I feel like that's absolutely a conversation I've had.
I also remember the first time meeting you at the steampunk convention, and I remember thinking two things first time I met you, like, wow, you're tall. And,
truth.
And
you and Rey Mysterio.
Because I think I'm about 6 feet, so usually I'm the tall person. So usually when someone is taller than me, I recognize that. And then also and the second thing I was like, oh, kitchen tongs.
For those that don't know, when I did Steampunk Performance, I was a character who was a battle chef. So I used to make weaponry out of actual kitchen implements. So
yeah, I like the Wolverine kitchen tong.
Oh yeah,
that was really cool. But that was great.
I still have those. I use those every now and again in like devised work.
But it's funny. It's because of that going to that con and taking a chance of going there, because I wasn't aware of what steampunk was, but I wanted to know. And that was the kind I met you. I met Diana. I met some other steampunk people, which now I'm like, I wish I'd never met them. But they were
hard, same. But continue.
Yeah. I won't mention it on this podcast, but I did sort of work with some of them, and then once I found out how self-destructive they were, I left them. But because of that, I got to know the scene better and get to meet people, and it was a good time. It was a good time. And of course, I think afterwards, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was ConnecticCon. We met again, and we hung out, we talked, and I forgot how it came about. Like, I think I asked you, like, hey, would you like to be an interviewer? I can't remember when that conversation happened. I think after that, I think the first time would have been New York Comic Con. I'm trying to remember, or Otakon. No, it would have been Otakon would have came first.
I think I'm trying to remember. Yeah, because I think it was Otakon, because it took me, because at that point when we met, Diana was in New York, but I was not. And so, because I really didn't do New York Comic Con until I moved to New York. So I think, yeah, like it may have been because I know that I wrote an article for y'all. So I wonder if maybe it was the article, like maybe it was ConnecticCon. You're like, hey, do you want to pitch an article? Because I think, because at the time I was talking about, especially with the building in ConnecticCon, the only safe restroom that I could find was a family restroom.
That's right.
And so I think I may have either pitched you an article or talked about, like, hey, this is like the reality of me at an event like this and trying to use a restroom. So I wonder if maybe, like, and I don't know. the Ashley wiki is going to be very confused right now as to the origin of Ashley working for Nerd Caliber.
But if I remember correctly, because now at the time I was working with a lot of people, but they're all very central into New England. But I wanted to go to Otakon really badly, and I didn't know anyone else going to Otakon except for you. So I think that would have made sense. That's how I probably would approach, like, hey, if you're going to be at Otakon, can we do interviews together?
Yeah.
I remember that first time being a really good one, being a lot of fun. It was, I didn't realize I worked so much, but that makes sense, because I remember at the time I had this weird thing, like I got to film from like 10 a.m. when it opens to like 6 o'clock when it closes.
Yeah.
And nowadays I don't do that. Nowadays, when I do video, I do mostly question of the day stuff where I just look for the answers. And instead of being 8 hours, it's more like 3 hours a day, which I'm glad for, because that's just, it just made time management more efficient. But yeah, I remember that. Let's see, I'm trying to think. I remember the last New York Comic Con that we did together. That was the hardest one for us, because it was 2016. I remember that, because that's when freaking Trump got elected, and it was something about.
Was it 2016? Wow.
Yeah. Because I remember that, because I think it was a bad year of like everything good started to end then, in a way, like that was the last time I worked with you. I remember, and I remember, and I was not surprised, because everyone was like, we had some encounters there where like people were just mean, and I was like, what is going on here? It was like I've never felt like how like you always hear stories of like trans individuals getting discriminated against, and I knew they existed, but I'd never seen it. And I saw that at New York Comic Con that year, and that was really heartbreaking. And I was mad for you. I was upset for you. And afterwards, when you told me, hey, listen, I want to take a break, I didn't fight you, because I was sad, of course, but I understood, because it was just, I was bad. That was crazy stuff.
Yeah, if you want to read about it, I did write a whole thing about it in an article for Nerd Caliber back when it happened. But for those that don't know, someone essentially came up to me, and I used the word assaulted me. It is absolutely still a thing. I did not get hit, but someone removed an article of my clothing. And it was a whole fucking thing. And I've moved past it. But it was also like a very tough day, because I had just come from trying to get a doctor's appointment for something that was going on. I don't remember exactly.
Did he have I think he had like a toothache. That was like.
Yeah. Oh man. Wow. Everything's coming back. Yeah. So I needed to get something done, and like a whole other problem had happened. Then this happened, and I just felt like everything was not worth it as far as putting in the time, putting in the effort, and a series of like shit just went down. And finally, so I skipped New York Comic Con for the next 2 years, and then last year someone had an extra pass, so for that day, like they weren't going to use it, so I grabbed it, and I just came just as me and just kind of like took it in again. And I had said to you, and that's the thing that kills me about 2020, is I said to you, I was like, hey, 2020, let's do this again. I'm coming back.
Well, I think it was
Nope, nobody's coming back.
Well, I think AEW helped out with that.
That killed me.
Because we were
That
talking.
killed me because you Nerd Caliber had the opportunity to interview not only just people from AEW, Nyla friggin' Rose, and you're like, oh, we don't know anyone that knows anything. It's just
Yeah, I think I feel I had to be very careful with celebrity interviews because they take up so much of your time, and I knew doing cosplay interviews was what my viewers wanted, and so that people understand when they hear this. When I say they take up your time, so what happens is when you're scheduled to interview them, let's say at 1 p.m., you have to be there at 12:45, 15 minutes before. You have to wait there in line. Then you go into a room, and for like an hour or so, you have to stay there, and then you have to wait in line with every other media people. And then it's almost like a red carpet thing where they go down the line and we do interviews, and that could end up an hour. I think sometimes an hour and a half, depending, who's involved. And then that's good, like 2 hours. You did 2 hours checking. By then, you don't want to do more interviews. You want to go somewhere and eat. So it's very draining. And then, like, for me, I'm thinking, like, okay, for 2 hours, I could have, like, another question of the day video done. And those were hard. So when I saw that, like, we had a chance to do Nyla Rose and Chris Jericho and all these other ones, I was like, I would have done it, but I just, I didn't have anyone. I'm the only one that knew who AEW was, So I saw you. What was it that Sunday?
Yeah.
You came down. I just saw him like, oh yeah, we had a chance to interview them, and it was so bad.
So bad.
But to me, that was the exciting part about it. Was like you agreed to come back. I was like, yes, I was very excited because I knew we're gonna get good content, and working with you is always gonna be like getting good content. Because what I mean by that is that this. And not to diss my other interviews, they're great, but you do these great one-liners and puns, and you're very good. Like if something were to change, you're on your feet to go along with the flow of the topic. And like I think of like the Beast Boy thing. Like somehow you made that work. That was a lot of fun. When you met Mo for the first time, that was great. Like I'm trying to think of other ones. Like one time you were Matt Hardy.
Yes, this was during the spike of the broken Matt Hardy.
Yes.
For the 3 listeners that watch wrestling. It is. I will say that was a milestone too, because that was the first time since being out about being trans that I ever cosplayed a male character. And I even got, and no one has commented on this. Matt Hardy did retweet it. Impact Wrestling did retweet it. But no one commented on the fact that I literally made the beard using an eyeliner pencil, multiple eyeliner pencils, so that I could get the graying areas of Matt Hardy's beard.
Oh, wow.
No one has commented on that, and that's fine. I got it perfectly accurate because I was looking at pictures. I was finding where the grays are. I was like, yep, nope, this is who he is. Yes! So, wonderful.
Yeah. So, yeah. It's funny. I bet you once we're done with this, probably some other... So many... Every moment I work with you has always been memorable in some way. There's always a story afterwards. And I'm sure I'll remember them all once this is done. But those, I think honestly, it's like, I do enjoy the views that videos do get here and there. But honestly, if I wasn't, and we spoke about this before, I have to really care about the video, for me to do the video. We talked before about Joker and Harley Quinn, and we talked about like, is this the right thing to do? And I like talking to you about this. I feel like because you have a really good moral center, so like I could share this with you, and you understand understand Like okay, am I doing the right thing? Because I don't want to emphasize or let people know like, hey, having a bad relationship is okay with someone, and I want people to think that Joker and Harley is the ideal relationship, and there are people that think that, but I don't want us to think that like we think that's okay. If they think it's okay, that's okay, whatever. But I don't want people to think that we're promoting that. That's the word I'm looking for. So that like topics like that, like I'm glad I got a chance to talk to you about that, and kind of really figure things out, making sure that we produce content that lasts the ages. That I don't want to make something and then like 10 years from like, oh man, we shouldn't have said that or we should have done that, which there probably will be, that's just how times are. But
yeah, I know one of our contributors, AJ Mattioli, has talked about past work that he's done that is very like, and this is true of me as well. It's just he has shared this on the podcast before that like, oh, I've used terms, I've done things, like I've had things in movies that I probably wouldn't do now. And that's true. It's true of everyone. It's true of every creator. Some things are going to change, and I think it's about acknowledging that and understanding that and saying that, okay, this was a time and we need to figure out how to fix change or just course correct. And that's, yeah. And I feel like I agree with you. I think it's better when you don't need to worry about that, but at the same time, it's going to happen. Yeah. So, so it's just a matter of figuring out how to move forward from that. So the only other question I want to make sure that I talk about before we start wrapping up is how has COVID affected the convention season? Obviously, it's affected it a lot, but particularly for you, for Nerd Caliber, like how have y'all been able to continue doing your thing during self-isolation?
The first month or two was difficult because I wasn't sure what to do exactly, and I did. Luckily, I still had footage that I haven't had a chance to work on because I've been so busy. So like, okay, now that I'm at a convention, I can go back and work on those and edit those. Like I had this superhero yoga video for like a year. It's been in my backlog for a year, and I just didn't have a chance to finish it. But now I was able to, so I was able to put that out. I'm actually happy with like COVID gave us a very challenging, gave us some challenges, which I was happy to work through because it forced me to think things out of the box. Like I got used to, like before, if you asked me, hey, let's do it in interview Zoom, I'm like, no, no, let's just do it. Let's wait to do it face to face. But now I'm very much more comfortable with Zoom. I become much more comfortable with like OBS and other like online systems. And I realized they're just as effective as if I was right there. But so what's been great. Well, so yeah, convention scene, so that's not happening at all. We're not there. And even if they were open at this point, we wouldn't go there. No one wants to jeopardize anyone's health, and I'm not jeopardizing my health especially, or anyone else's. Let me phrase that again. I don't want to jeopardize anyone's health, period. So I wouldn't go to any conventions right now. So what I've been doing is that I've been doing everything online. And what's great is I can interview any cosplay anywhere. I interview cosplayers now from Germany, from England, Argentina, Mexico, Brazil. What's great that we live in a world where, like, again, some of the international cosplayers, I can write my questions out, go to Google Translate them into a different language, and then say those questions in that language. And sometimes I'm trying to make dual videos when I ask some in English, some in their language, which I think that helps out a lot with viewership, Because sometimes our Nerd Caliber's audience tend to be very international as well. Our second biggest country outside of the US that watches our stuff is Brazil. So I've been working on trying to make more Portuguese videos. And we did one with the Joker. We did one in English and one in Portuguese, and the Portuguese one is doing much better than the English one. So I'm very happy about that. So it gives me a chance actually to talk to other people. I think I've told you before that one problem with Nerd Caliber that I've had is that I feel like we just keep tapping New England over and over again for cosplayers, and I'm trying to expand out of that, and my plan was like go back to do like AutoCon, OhioCon, all these really far conventions. I want to interview different people, and this allows me to do that, and I'm very happy with that. I get to meet cosplayers from coast to coast, from different time zones. I haven't done any Canada yet. I should work on that. But what's great is that I interviewed them, and afterwards I asked them like how they're doing and what's their community like, what's the cosplay community like, and what's going on, and they just tell me different things. I interviewed a Raven cosplay who afterwards was telling me that just weeks ago she was not home because she was part of her areas near where the California fires were happening, so she had to evacuate. So she was very happy to do the Raven cosplay afterward because she wanted some sort of normalcy to happen, So that was good. That's to me what's been happening right now in Nerd Caliber. We're just, and again, what I try to keep in mind of like, all right, I want to keep my cosplayers diverse from race to gender and so forth. I try to keep in mind of that we're not interviewing like pretty much white people, cis white people all the time, So I do a lot of exploring. I go to Instagram and just kind of like look for like, all right, let's see, Harley Quinn cosplays. Let me see what I can find. And when I see what Harley Quinn cosplays out there, I'm like, okay, I see a cosplayer. She's Spanish. She identifies as Spanish, and all right, let me put that down because that's not the norm that I see a lot. Usually when you see Harley Quinn cosplay, especially like on Reddit, usually, a white girl cosplaying, and that's fine. But I don't want the same thing all over again. I want to keep finding diverse individuals. If a male Harley Quinn cosplay, yes, let me write that down. Let me see if I can contact that person and see if we can do an interview and see, see if that person can share their experience as a cosplayer.
No, that's awesome. And I know, especially with this podcast, we've had a very similar thing where for years I've been like, I guess I'll figure out a way to make online interviews work. And then when all this hit, I was like, all right, well, this is how we're doing this. I need new episodes. And I put out a call and I got so much that like literally I've got up until May recorded. I've had May recorded since this past March, April. So yeah, like it's amazing once you're able to sort of figure out how to work the technology game, how much it opens up not only diverse perspectives, exactly like you were saying, but also just how many people that you didn't realize you were shutting out just because they weren't physically near you.
Yeah. See, so I do want to say with Nerd Caliber, I really don't. I'm not a marketer. I understand marketing here and there. Like if you ask me certain questions, like I know how it works, but with Nerd Caliber, I try to ignore my ideas or ignore other marketing ideas for it because I'm going to be real. A lot of the cosplay community can be problematic at times. So they may not want to see a Black person cosplay as Harley Quinn and talk about it. And that really makes me sad. But I don't. And it could be easy to say like, oh, okay, if I want to get some views, get some hits, I'll just get a white girl to cosplay Harley Quinn and talk about it and get some views. And I don't care about that. Like to me, it's always been like I want to give voices to people, and if the videos don't do well, I don't care. I just in a way, this is like I just keep trying to put images out there so that I still want to. I think there's still the stereotype of like only certain people could cosplay certain characters, and I'm trying my best to break that as much as I can. I interviewed someone who a Black woman who cosplays one of the characters from My Hero Academia. I forgot the name of the character, but it's I don't think there's hardly any Black characters in My Hero Academia, but which I'm sure someone's going to comment right now, like, wait, there's that one character you forgot.
What about? Yeah.
But I don't care. It makes her cosplay happy, and it's a good cosplay, and I want to showcase it. And that's I hope it makes a difference. Once it's funny. Every year or so, sometimes I feel like I'm going to quit Nerd Caliber. I'm tired of it. I do too much work of it on the side. I just want to relax. I just want to go play Super Mario Brothers and just chill, But then I'll get an email or a comment from someone that says like, hey, your video meant a lot to me. Your video or your article like really made me feel good about myself at a time where I feel like quitting cosplay. And then I read that and I'm like, okay, one more year. One more year. And I'm hoping that should I turn to dust one day, that when Nerd Caliber's still up there on YouTube, that someone's watching and I'm like, wow, this is cool. I'm glad I saw this, and I hope and it made me consider things in life. It made me think better of myself and other people.
I think that's a really good place to sort of end it and start wrapping up. I'm not exactly sure when I'm going to release this, but it'll be either sometime December, January, or February.
Yeah. I apologize for the editing you have to do. There's probably a bunch here and there.
You're golden. But yeah, tell people how to find you if you want them to, and tell people how to find Nerd Caliber.
If you want to check out the website, it's nerdcaliber.com. If you type in Nerd Caliber, Caliber, on YouTube, you'll find us there too. You can't miss us. We have like over 500,000 subscribers at this point.
Humble brag. You can't miss us. We got, I don't know, a bunch of...
We're a big deal.
Yeah.
Maybe I should say that again. Yeah,
Nerd Caliber. We're a big deal.
Well, again, the website, you can find us at nerdcaliber.com. Caliber spelled out Caliber. If you're curious why I picked the name Nerd Caliber, Nerd Caliber, because I loved the Excalibur movie when I was a kid. I've always loved Arthurian legends.
Really?
So, yeah. And I was going to name, so I was going to start a rock group. I was going to call myself Merlin, and the name of the group was going to be Excalibur. That was like back in junior high. That was my dream. So it must have stuck with me subconsciously. So when I was trying to think of two things to go together, I was like, all right, nerd, and then caliber. And caliber is a great word because it kind of mean different things a little bit. It could mean like a high standard. It could mean a weapon. I'll let people decide. It gives people a chance to decide what they think it could mean. But again, nerdcaliber.com. Type in Nerd Caliber on YouTube. We're on most social media. And you can always email me at producer@nerdcaliber.com. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer anything or, yeah.
Awesome. And for those listening for free, you can go to patreon.com/isitransphobic for our Patreon. You get these interviews a month early. You get the episodes a week early before we post them publicly. And you can always go to isitransphobic.com, @isitransphobic on Twitter as well as Instagram. You can also go to Coffee if you just heard an episode that you liked, like this one, but you don't want to support us for a monthly fee. I understand. I don't always have a monthly ability to give people money. But, hey, get me a coffee. ko-fi.com/isitransphobic.
Coffee has power. I've learned this.
Coffee gets me through the day. So buy me a coffee. So Emmanuel, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah. This is great. I mean, I'll be happy to come back for anything. I mean, any reason, to be honest with you, to talk and hang out. It's always great.
Is It Transphobic was produced, edited, and coordinated by Ashley Lauren Rogers.
The original music you heard was all created by Vivian Aladrin, who you can find on Bandcamp at vivianaladrin.bandcamp.com.